Tonight on Bridge City News. Now that the Alberta government has presented its budget, we'll take a look at the positive and negative reactions across the province and here in Lethbridge. Stock markets continue to take a plunge as investors worry about the impact the spread of the coronavirus may have on the global economy. And we chat with the Lethbridge Hurricanes as today's game theme is to end bullying.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. The Alberta government has tabled its latest red ink budget, but remains optimistic about oil and pipelines while committed to building up high-tech sectors. Total revenue is expected to be $50 billion, the same as last year. But opposition leader Rachel Notley says the budget is full of broken promises.
We're on track with the four-year fiscal plan that we laid out last fall with Budget 2019. We continue to make job creation and economic growth the number one priority in our plan going forward. And we continue also to commit to Albertans that we will manage the province's finances responsibly. I believe that 2020 has the potential to be a turnaround year for the economy in this province. We're seeing signals, we're seeing signs at this point that our broad-based method of improving the Alberta economy is beginning to attract investment. Again, CAP's indicating that investment in this province will go up from an energy standpoint by $1.5 billion. We're seeing other prospective investment coming into the province. Again, we're expecting to lead the country, in fact, or at least the other large provinces on non-energy investment in the upcoming year.
So today's budget is a continuation of Jason Kenney's broken promise to Albertans. It does not create jobs. It puts people out of work. It attacks frontline services. And not only that, it represents the second consecutive UCB budget with a deficit larger than what was actually delivered in the NDP's last budget. Indeed, in just the last 4 months, Travis Tave's projected deficit for this year has gone up by $1 billion. This does not inspire confidence. Not to mention that all of this is based on fictional growth and oil price projections that are wildly out of step with private sector forecasts. More importantly, it gives little hope to the 50,000 people who lost their jobs since Jason Kenney handed over billions to big, profitable corporations.
Meanwhile, local reactions to the provincial budget were mixed.
Well, it really was no surprise. It was a budget of austerity. It's one that focuses on job creation and economic diversification. So certainly we think that we're well positioned to do that in the city of Lethbridge. I think we're also fortunate that we're going through the administrative review process where we're looking internally at opportunities for saving here at the city and looking at what the city should do, what the city should be financing.
I feel poorly that I actually took the government at their word that they were going to do what they said they were going to do, because they're not doing it. We have no schools, no new schools at all for Lethbridge, and we at least need 2 West Side schools in the public system alone. We don't see anything else in terms of infrastructure investment, whether it's the Performing Arts Centre that this government personally cancelled because the agreement had already been made with the federal government, or the expansion of the airport, which we had also committed funds to. So what we see is nothing for Lethbridge except job losses and hiked property taxes.
One of the focuses is getting Alberta back to work. And yes, we are hearing about some of the challenges businesses are having. This budget does look at how can we make it simpler for businesses to keep moving forward, to keep being the economic drivers that business is, and all forms of business, which I think is really important.
With Budget 2020, the Alberta government is promising a return to a balanced budget by the end of its mandate in 2023. The Edmonton and Calgary Chambers of Commerce say they welcome the new budget. The chambers say it will bring directional stability and bold action needed to create jobs. Both groups say they support the continued path back to a balanced budget and dedication to economic diversification. The chambers also say they appreciate the government's leadership on breaking down internal trade barriers and helping businesses access international markets. They also endorse the plan to cut red tape and take action to harmonize professional skill qualifications. The Alberta Teachers Association is giving the budget a failing grade. ATA President Jason Schilling says 30,000 students will enter schools next year without necessary funding. He says that will mean larger class sizes and less supports for learning. The Alberta Medical Association, meanwhile, says the budget includes devastating cuts to physician payments that will be harmful to doctors, the healthcare system, and patients. The Alberta Union of Provincial Employees says the budget will cut more than 1,400 public sector jobs and reduce funding for crucial services. The Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce is collaborating with Economic Development Lethbridge, the University of Lethbridge, and Lethbridge College to launch #HireTogetherYQL. The campaign, while similar to the previous campaign of #ShopTogetherYQL, is aimed at opening the discussion between employers and employees, as well as embracing the community brand Lethbridge Brighter Together.
It's going to highlight the skill sets that are available for continuous learning through our post-secondaries, what our employers are doing, the opportunities that are present right now in the community, and how we connect the employees within that picture.
This campaign runs for 2 months, so it'll be finished at the end of April. So we'll have some information back in May. And then we're also working on a labor skills gap analysis with the with Lethbridge College and some of our regional partners to actually highlight where are those gaps that we're seeing in the community.
The campaign, which launches on Monday, is asking businesses looking for employees to share posts and pictures on social media. Business scams are on the rise, and a local Lethbridge company, Breathe Easy Heating and Air Conditioning, recently felt the wrath of a big-time scam that was hurting their customers.
So we started to dig a little deeper, asked some more questions, and found out that someone on social media was offering duct cleaning at a very reduced price and using our website and name. You know, these people are thieves, they're criminals. They're stealing from our community, and we didn't want that to happen. So yeah, we just wanted to let people know that when you're looking for duct cleaning or anything really, do your due diligence.
The company is hoping their customers will be vigilant in the future and ask about money transfers before the job is done. Bullying remains an ongoing concern for many, and TELUS has teamed up with the Lethbridge Hurricanes for End Bullying Night at the NMAG Centre tonight to raise awareness and get the conversation going about this important topic. BCN's Micah Quinn has the story.
The Lethbridge Hurricanes will take on the Edmonton Oil Kings tonight, and the special theme is #EndBullying.
TELUS is proud to sponsor the End Bullying game tonight with the Lethbridge Hurricanes. The End Bullying game is all about providing awareness and resources so Canadians can come together and create a safe digital space for everyone.
42% of youth have experienced cyberbullying, and it does not just impact the youth.
If you go to teluswise.com/resources, you will find all kinds of amazing tip sheets on how to keep your kids safe online, parent tip sheets, and you can also request a workshop where we can come into your school, into your place of business, and teach you parenting tips, how to be safe online, internet safety, cyberbullying. We have workshops for youth, we have workshops for junior high, we have workshops for teenagers, adults, and even seniors.
Barlow says the community reaction to #EndBullying has been well received.
We've gone into different schools and taught in various TELUS-wise workshops, and a really fun, cool thing that I was able to do was when I went into the schools and taught the workshops, I was able to have them take the End Bullying Pledge right then and there. And as a token for standing together to end bullying, I offered them tickets to come to the game tonight so that we can all stand together and show our support to end bullying and create a safer space together.
TELUS Wise has reached over 170,000 Canadians through its End Bullying workshops. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
According to city police, a kidnapping ransom phone scam is making the rounds. Some Lethbridge residents reported receiving suspicious phone calls from an overseas number. The scammer then claims that a family member has been kidnapped or is being held captive. The caller then demands ransom cash via a wire transfer. Police advise anyone who receives such a call not to comply with the caller's demands, never give out personal information over the phone, and report suspicious phone calls to police. Mandy Sandbatch is the president of the Lethbridge Sustainable Living Association, a group that gathers together community members for a variety of activities, including something called the Fruit Rescue Program.
We have a relationship with landowners who have fruit trees and shrubs that they're not able to get to picking. Lots of our seniors can't get out and get their trees picked. Course, yeah. And then we have a group of volunteers, and so what we do is we match our volunteers with our landowners, and we create these picking events where we're able to utilize the fruit. Thousands and thousands of pounds of fruit every year we divert from falling on the ground and distribute it within the community, both to our seniors, the landowners, our volunteer pickers, the food bank, the soup kitchen, lots of different places.
Hal Roberts has the full interview coming up right after the business news. It appears a top-level meeting could be in the works between Ottawa, the BC government, and the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs. Crown Indigenous Relations Minister Carolyn Bennett appeared to leave the door open to that possibility as she and her BC counterpart went into a second day of meetings with the chiefs this morning in Smithers. Meanwhile, the Conservatives continue to insist that professional protesters are disrupting rail traffic across the country. During question period this morning, Conservative MP John Brassard told Parliament that, quote, the Prime Minister is taking his cues from the granola-crunching, Castro-loving, VW bus-driving, anti-resource, anti-government, anti-everything professional protesters with absolutely no connections to First Nations groups. Federal Privacy Commissioner Danielle Therrien is investigating the RCMP's use of facial recognition software due to concerns about how the information is kept and shared. The Mounties have been experimenting with American company Clearview AI's technology to identify and rescue children in images of sexual abuse posted online. While they have been vague about what other purposes they are using it for, the Mounties say they will work with Therrien on guidelines for using the technology within the limits of existing laws. The spreading coronavirus is threatening to derail the global economy, with more companies warning investors their finances will take a hit because of disruptions to supply chains and sales. And it's been another day of massive losses on Bay and Wall Streets. The World Health Organization is raising the risk assessment of COVID-19 to very high at the global level. There are now 4,351 cases of the new coronavirus in nearly 60 countries outside of China. Ontario has just confirmed its 7th case of the novel coronavirus, bringing the total number of confirmed and presumptive cases in Canada to 15. Before celebrating Black History Month in a ceremony in the East Room at the White House, President Donald Trump sat down with a group of the attendees and defended his administration's handling of the global health threat of the coronavirus.
We have a situation with the virus. We've done a great job. The press won't give us credit for it. We have 15 people in this country that right now we brought in 40 from, these were Americans that were in trouble way outside near Japan. And we brought them in, and they're in quarantine, and they're getting better. That was 40 or 42. We brought them in, which I felt we had to do. So they immediately said, it jumped from 15 to an extra 40, headline and everything. No, we brought them in, Jack, because if we didn't, I mean, we're not gonna let something happen. We had to do it. And I knew immediately that the press would add it in and say this, like it's catastrophic, but we've done a great job. Those people are all doing well. They're doing very well. I think it's an incredible achievement that our country's done. And one thing I have to pay tribute, we have, whether it's Dr. Fauci, we have the best people on earth. We have the most talented people on earth. I did one thing that a lot of people disagreed with, including many of the professionals, closed the borders, because they said it's too serious a move. Took tremendous heat, was called everything, including David racist, okay? I was called everything. And for a while I said maybe I shouldn't have done that, and now it turned out to be great because we have so few people that have been affected. Well, I think the press has been really out of line. And I think they're also very worried that, we're going to be running against somebody, and they see these characters up on stage, and, anything can happen in an election. and they see these people, and if any of these people ever did happen to assume the presidency, you would have a crash like you've never seen before. That's right. And I think the market's also putting that into the equation.
How well prepared is Canada to deal with a more serious COVID-19 outbreak? Hal Roberts spoke with our parliamentary reporter Ray Fillion.
But Patty Hajdu, the federal health minister, was saying that Canadians should be prepared in case they're asked to, undergo quarantine at home and stuff like that. But yeah, we're told it's all hands on deck at the federal level in case, there's a major outbreak in this country, which we all hope won't happen.
You can watch the full interview with Ray Fillion in the second half of today's program. There are some new movies playing at the Mill this weekend, including Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. With more, here's the BCN Movie Mill Minute. Frozen 2. Elsa the Snow Queen has an extraordinary gift, the power to create ice and snow. But no matter how happy she is to be surrounded by the people of Arendelle, Elsa finds herself strangely unsettled. After hearing a mysterious voice call out to her, Elsa travels to the enchanted forests beyond her kingdom, an adventure that soon turns into a journey of self-discovery.
That's normal. Where are we?
How did you get in the forest?
The mist parted for us.
Impossible.
Where did you learn magic?
Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. When it's discovered that the evil Emperor Palpatine did not die at the hands of Darth Vader, the rebels must race against the clock to find out his whereabouts. Finn and Poe lead the Resistance to put a stop to the First Order's plans to form a new empire, while Rey anticipates her inevitable confrontation with Kylo Ren.
Long have I waited. And now, you're coming together. Is your undoing.
We had some very warm temperatures again today. That trend should continue over the next couple of days. Full weather details are coming right up. Well, it's so nice to have snowless forecasts, although we may have a bit of rain later this week. Jeanette Roche is here now with a look at the weather.
Yeah, Paul, we could be seeing some showers this weekend and into early next week. But first of all, let's talk about today. Today's high was 15 degrees. And you know what? It was actually Canada's hot spot today. Lethbridge, Alberta was Canada's hot spot today. So I find that pretty exciting. The overnight low tonight is 3 degrees and into tomorrow, 6 degrees. We could be seeing a 30% chance of showers Saturday evening. So that's where that possibility of showers comes in for this weekend. Also expect some wind this weekend as well. 3 degrees is the high for Sunday with a mix of sun and cloud. We could be seeing a possibility of showers on Monday as well with a high of 7 degrees. 8 degrees is the high for Tuesday with lots of sunshine, and 6 degrees being the high temperature for Wednesday, and they're expecting it to be 12 degrees on Thursday with a mix of sun and cloud. Not too bad if you ask me. I would certainly say that March is coming in like a lamb. And now the almanac highs and lows for this time of year, they're saying that 3 degrees is the average high, -9 the average low. We're certainly above that. The high temperature on this day in 1992 was 19 degrees, and it was a chilly -32 back in 1962. The sun rose this morning at 7:17 a.m. and it set at 10 after 6 p.m. So that means we have got 4 minutes longer of daylight today than we did yesterday. So what does that mean? Summer's coming. That's how I see it. The West Coast, 8 degrees on Victoria. Tomorrow, Vancouver will be seeing a high of 9 degrees with the chance of showers. They could expect 5 centimeters of snow tomorrow in Edmonton, and there's a 60% chance of flurries tomorrow in Calgary with a high of 4 degrees. Saskatoon also, it's showing sunshine, but they're also expecting a chance of rain overnight on Saturday night there. 3 degrees is the high. Regina's high 6 degrees, and Winnipeg sitting at an even 0 with a mix of sun and cloud. Now over further east here, Toronto is under a snow squall warning for this evening with some blowing snow, and then snow flurries tomorrow with a high of -5, -7 expected in Ottawa, and same thing for Montreal. Ottawa also expecting flurries tomorrow. Flurries also expected in Fredericton on Saturday with a high of 2 degrees. 2 degrees also expected in Halifax. They could be seeing a mix of sun and cloud and possible flurries. Charlottetown's high 1 degrees and 0 degrees in St. John's, Newfoundland. They're also expecting some flurries there. There you go, Paul. That is your weekend forecast.
Today's weather highlights are brought to you by Aqua Steam Services. For award-winning carpet and upholstery cleaning, experience the clean difference with Aqua Steam Services.
Here is the BCN Ski Report. Let's see how much fresh snow there's been over the past 24 hours. No new snow reported at Marmot Basin, but they do have a 131 centimeter base. No new snow at Castle Mountain, but there's a 90 centimeter base. Sunshine Village has seen 8 centimeters of new snow with a 170 centimeter base. No new snow at Whistler, but they have a healthy 250 centimeter base. Panorama's had 2 centimeters of fresh powder and an 88 centimeter base. There's been 6 centimeters of new snow at Whitefish and a 336 centimeter base. Lake Louise has seen 4 centimeters of new snow and a 148 centimeter base. No new snow at Mount Norquay, but they do have a 74 centimeter base. Nakiska has had 2 centimeters of fresh powder and a 132 centimeter base. That's it for the BCN Ski Report. Be safe and have fun on the slopes this weekend.
White House Economic Advisor Larry Kudlow is urging investors and the public to remain calm as U.S. stocks fall sharply and are on track for their worst week since October 2008 as the spreading coronavirus threatens to derail a global economy.
My reading of the numbers that we have at hand, and again, I acknowledge this could change, and I acknowledge the situation could deteriorate, and I acknowledge the risks, but given what we know factually, it looks to me like the market has gone too far. I've seen this before, and it can come back very rapidly. We're dealing with this almost a day at a time, and we have no precipitous actions right now. Again, you know, it's sometimes a hard case to make in the middle of one of these crises, which is part psychology and part fact, but I just don't think anybody ought to panic right now, and we are going to stay the course on our policies.
Economic growth slowed in the fourth quarter to an annualized rate of 0.3% due to drops in business investment and weak international trade. Statistics Canada also revised its reading for the third quarter GDP from its initial reading of 1.3% down to 1.1%. The agency reports the economy grew by 1.6% in 2019, down from the 2% the year before. The federal Conservatives say they support swift passage of the new North American trade deal, but 4 of the party's MPs have written the government saying it is crucial to more closely examine its winners and losers. They want the government to compensate dairy farmers within 90 days of the deal becoming law, saying the sector is its biggest loser. The letter to Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland cites a 3.6% loss of market share for the Canada dairy sector due to the deal. Now here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 454 points to 16,263. The Dow was down 357 points to 25,409. The S&P 500 was down 25 points to 2,954. And the Nasdaq was actually up 1 point to 8,567. Oil was down $1.83 to $45.26 per barrel. Natural gas was down 5 cents to $1.70. Gold was down $59.33 to $1,585.69 an ounce. Silver was down $1.11 to $16.67 per ounce. Wheat is at $225 per metric ton. Barley is at $222. Canola is at $458 per metric ton, and corn came in at $258. Live cattle were down $2.90 to $107.58. Feeder cattle were down $1.30 to $131.28. Lean hogs were down 28 cents to $62.28. The Canadian dollar was up very slightly on the day to 74.67 US. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, there are mixed reactions to the Alberta provincial budget. Public sector groups are not happy with it, but the Calgary and Edmonton Chambers of Commerce have responded positively. Society today places a lot of value on stewarding our environment and reducing waste. Hal Roberts sat down to discuss this and more with Mandy Sandbach, the president of the Lethbridge Sustainable Living Association. That interview is coming up shortly. If you'd like to watch our interviews online, you can do so at bridgecitynews.ca or on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe. Now here's a look at events happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. Come for a night of down-home fun to the Friends Winter Barn Dance on Saturday, March 7th, beginning at 7 p.m. at the Galt Museum and Archives. Proceeds will go towards educational programs at the Galt. Tickets are $30 for adults, $20 for youth ages 11 to 17, and children 10 and under are free. Purchase yours by visiting galtmuseum.com. Southern Alberta Men's Ministry is hosting Shine Be the Light Men's Conference on March 20th and 21st at University Drive Alliance Church. emceeing the conference is our very own BCN's Hal Roberts, with special guest speaker Pastor Leonard Anderson from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Tickets are $20 and $10 for college students. Purchase yours by visiting eventbrite.ca. For more information, call 403-327-4422. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
It seems that more and more people like the idea of living life in a more natural and sustainable way. But how do you go about doing that? Our guest today has a few ideas on that topic. Mandy Sandbach is the president of the Lethbridge Sustainable Living Association. Welcome to BCN, Mandy.
Thank you for having me.
So let's talk a bit about your group, the Lethbridge Sustainable Living Association. What is it all about?
Well, originally the group started in 2012 with a group of folks who wanted to create an eco-village. They recognized there was a need to maybe live in a more sustainable way. Since then, it's kind of morphed and changed into this like grassroots, hands-on, skill-sharing, collaborative approach. And so we have several different initiatives in the community: the Fruit Rescue Program, Permaculture Lethbridge, the Community Clothing Swap, and the Zero Waste Initiative as well. And so through all of those different initiatives, we're able to reach out and start to help people on their sustainable journey, regardless of where they're at.
Now, Mandy, food is one of your focal points. Why is it so important for people to grow their own?
Oh, wow. It's quite a holistic approach, the way the LSLA looks at it. But for me personally, we all have great memories of growing food with Grandma and Grandpa in our garden spaces. It's like something that nourishes our soul. And keeps us in touch with nature, which is really important. But from a perspective of local food production, what we want to see is people empowered to actually start learning these basic skills. There was a time and a place where we had that information sort of shared down from generation to generation, and it hasn't quite been that way. And so what we want to see is people empowered with the skills and knowledge to be able to do that, so that they can first go into their backyards and grow with the space and the soil that they have available, and then be able to assess where they're at for their food needs, rather than having to rely on grocery stores totally and completely. The other thing that it does is it creates this beautiful sense of community as we're gathering together and we're sharing knowledge and we're looking for land, because not everybody has access to land to grow in. And so not only are we growing local food that grows community, but we're also eating cleaner food typically when it does come from shorter distances away.
I have an uncle and aunt that have an acreage out by Bowden, and it was just acres and acres, it seemed like anyway, of peas and carrots. And it was so wonderful. You know, you pull it out of the ground, take it off the vine, crack it open, eat it. It was so tasty and refreshing, right? Yeah. The only thing is when you got to harvest all those vegetables, right? That's a bit of work.
Yeah.
But I guess it's good exercise too at the same time.
Absolutely,
now,
it's
do you
good.
teach gardening too, gardening skills?
The Lethbridge Sustainable Living, we offer a series of workshops and events and tours of different spaces that are growing. So not just that we teach the skills, but we're taking them and pointing them to people in the community who are still doing that, or are doing different ways to do that. Also, we collaborate with other organizations, like the Interfaith Food Bank has a learning garden. And so me personally, I will collaborate with them to do a series of workshops. And in what you'll see oftentimes in the spring is what's called the Seed to Supper program. And that's a basic gardening workshop. So we cover things like composting, water harvesting, building soil, companion planting, all the things that you need to know to have sustainable gardens.
What about those community gardens? I'm thinking specifically for people in condominiums or maybe apartments. apartments, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of folks come to us and say, I'm in an apartment, how am I going to grow? Indoor growing is difficult at best, but sometimes they have a patio, and so you can look at container gardening in those spaces. But we also have community and communal gardens here in Lethbridge. So the Kinsman Park, for example, has a communal garden that's just open for anyone in the neighborhood to come in and participate in. In places like Copperwood, they're actually designing these community gardens to be actually in those spaces. So you can get a plot for community gardens as well if you don't have land of your own.
What about food storage? For many people, that can be a serious challenge.
Yeah, it is. That's another one of those skills, right, that used to be passed down from generation to generation. And so part of our mandate is really bringing back those basic skills and start teaching people how to start preserving, whether it's canning or jamming or pickling or dehydrating, making applesauce, things like that. And so making those workshops accessible financially as well as locationally. And then that collaborative approach comes in again in terms of partnering with places like the Soup Kitchen or the Interfaith Food Bank to utilize their spaces and teach their clientele as well how to do it.
The first time I tried some of the dried out fruit, such as like bananas, it was almost like banana jerky. It was kind of cool, you know, it was kind of tasty, and I tried that as a kid. I thought, this is really neat. Huh? And it's healthy too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better than the alternative with a lot of candies for kids, right?
Absolutely, yeah, especially if we're comparing it to processed sugars and things like that.
Mandy, you have something as well called the Fruit Rescue Program.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
Yeah, the Fruit Rescue Program is an initiative of the LSLA and is a group of volunteers. And so I need to be really clear, we're not a fruit picking service because you can't just phone us up and we'll come pick your fruit.
Apples, right? Sure.
We're limited by our volunteer base. But what we do is we have a relationship with landowners who have fruit trees and shrubs that they're not able to get to picking. Lots of our seniors can't get out and get their trees picked.
Of course, yeah.
And then we have a group of volunteers. And so what we do is we match our volunteers with our landowners and we create these picking events where we're able to utilize the fruit. Thousands and thousands of pounds of fruit every year we divert from falling on the ground and distribute it within the community, both to our seniors, the landowners, our volunteer pickers, the food bank, the soup kitchen, lots of different places. Recently, in the last couple of years, the Fruit Rescue Program was able to raise money for a commercial apple press. And so that's allowed us to be really mobile and actually go out to the spaces, pick the apples, for example, on site, and then do the juicing and the pasteurization there, and then distribute it in the form of juice as well.
How about when it comes to vegetables and helping people pick their vegetables? Do you have some veggie tales for us?
No veggie tales. We are limited again by the amount of volunteers that we have. So what we do offer is the ability to share some knowledge and pass that information around. So part of the community creation is that we have this beautiful foundation for being able to put people in touch with one another so that they can help people out. So for example, if our seniors need certain fruit and they can't get out to pick it, we'll pick a bag and take it to them. And so we try to connect our volunteers in that way, whether it's veggies or fruit. It just happens that we have a real abundance of fruit here in Lethbridge. Sour cherries, pears, apples of all kinds, raspberries, all the berries. So lots of abundance.
Now you encourage people as well to buy local, but doesn't it get to be a little expensive though when you're going to the farmer's market? I mean, you're supporting local producers, which is wonderful, but sometimes people can't afford that.
Yeah, the cost is it's a really veiled process too in terms of the cost. We have lots of different issues within that shopping local idea. From the perspective of sustainability and regeneration, we always want to support local because we want to keep those people employed. We want our food to have the least impact miles-wise, kilometers-wise, fossil fuel-wise that it possibly can. And so cost becomes one of those things that we vote with our money
and
on.
maybe less pesticides as well?
Absolutely,
on all
way
those fruits
less,
and vegetables,
absolutely.
Right? Which is healthier for you?
Absolutely. So there's always this like organic or non-organic conversation, and I think it's less about that and more about what are the ethics of how the farmer's grown it, how close is it to me? Do I have a relationship with these people? That's a really important thing to consider. And so the other thing that you can do to keep the cost down is buy in bulk. So one of the things we offer as an organization is a cooperative ordering group where we can order large volumes and divide it up and you get it at a discount. All farmers have an ugly crop of carrots or potatoes that they can't sell in the store. And so you can approach the farmers if you have a relationship with them and say, hey, I'm happy to take your ugly beets or potatoes or carrots at a discounted rate. And that's often what happens. So there's ways around that cost.
That's a great idea. I mean, they're still healthy for you.
Yeah,
you're still
absolutely.
getting the same nutrients, right?
Yes,
Vitamins
absolutely.
and minerals.
And better nutrients because they haven't been transported so long as what they would be if they came from California and things like that.
Let's talk about free-range meat and eggs. My father used to love, when I was a kid, buying the Hutterite chickens, he used to call them, right?
Yes, yeah.
And because they were so big and plump and they were healthy, they weren't plumped up artificially, right?
Mm-hmm,
How
yeah.
important is that too?
Oh, it's really important. I think the important piece for my belief and what the LSLA tries to share is that you're asking questions. Who's your farmer? Where are they? Do you know them? Do you know what their practices are? And so it's less about spray or don't spray or plump them full of things or not, and more about just knowing that piece of it. Again, is short amount of distances our meat and our eggs come, the better off it is, the more nutrient dense it is, the better quality it is. And so you'll find that there's lots of farmers, local farmers, especially around Lethbridge, who may not be organic, but they're using ethical processes and they're not putting anything excess into the animals that needs to be. You can actually go out and witness the way they're farming. And so that's really great. Once you've had a taste for clean meat, I'll call it, free range is sort of, there's so many terms, and it depends who's selling the product in terms of like what it actually is. But ask those questions about how they treat the animals, take a tour. But once you've had a taste for it, so we used to have our own eggs when we lived out of the city, and everybody we gave our eggs to, they're ruined for store-bought eggs anymore because there's such a difference in quality and taste and texture. Yeah, and so it becomes in high demand, and that becomes a quality of life thing that you choose for you and your family. And the cost, you find ways around that. So.
What about when it comes to clothing? Do a lot of people still like to make their own clothes?
Oh, wow.
Outside of grandma making the mittens and toques for the
My grandma made so many of our clothes, and at the time I did not appreciate it, and now I definitely do. I don't know a ton of people who make their own clothes. I do know a couple of people who make them fashionably. But another option that we have are the things like our community clothing swap, where we gather donations of clothing and then we redistribute it. There's hundreds of thousands of pounds of clothes go into landfills every week of the year on the planet. And so if we can distribute that locally and get it moving within the economy here in town, then you don't have to buy that many extra clothes. There's no reason for that to be. So we provide that opportunity through our clothing swap.
Mandy, some people just don't like buying used clothing.
There's certain things
like, ew! You know how many sleeves and
Absolutely.
pits have been on this shirt? Like, no.
Absolutely.
So how do you convince people that, why buy new when used will do?
Yeah, I don't believe in convincing people for anything. You either hear that call or you don't. And that's kind of how we function as an organization. We just want people to know we're here if that does feel right to you. There's certain items of clothing I won't buy used. I will only buy new, or I'll make on
undergarments,
my
for instance, right?
Absolutely. And what we ask for from our community when they're donating is gently used. So if it has holes and you're not wearing it, we don't expect somebody else to wear your nasty socks. Like, that doesn't need to happen.
That ain't right.
No, it's not at all. But you can find some really great, name brand if that's what you're into. We have
like
lots
my kids,
of things.
Oshkosh, that was a big thing way back when.
Absolutely. And my kids now as teenagers, they have like Champion and Adidas and all the things like that. We have those things donated. And when it's happening on a regular basis, you know that you can purge your closet, get a new group of clothes that, fills that gap if you want to feel like you've had some new clothes without a big cost associated with it.
Now, sometimes you also host make your own cleaners events.
Yes.
What are they all about?
Yeah, so that's another collaboration with the Purple Carrot here in town, and that's something that I do. So the LSLA will sometimes host that, and other people that we work with will. So the do-it-yourself cleaners is just really an introduction to how else we can make our own cleaners. So rather than bringing a bunch more chemical and plastic ware into the world, we're going to teach people how to make their own basic cleaners as well. And they work really, really well. There's this notion that the only way we can clean is by using bleach, for example. And there's tons and tons of studies
Well, for
talking.
mold, I know bleach really
Absolutely,
helps,
and it works
right?
really well, and there's a time and a place for it.
Right.
But just our general cleaners, if we're just cleaning the bathroom or we're doing windows, vinegar and water works pristine to clean a window, for example. And so
does it matter what kind of vinegar, like white vinegar?
I would use a white vinegar,
Okay.
yeah. So sometimes the apple cider vinegar, for example, is a little thicker.
Right.
But we want to empower people and inspire them to start looking around their kitchen to see how else they can use some of the supplies they have. So everything that we do and everything that we teach, no matter what the workshop is, will always be accessible. You don't have to buy a bunch of fancy things in order for it to help, in order for you to be able to use it. And the DIY cleaner, household cleaners things about education, and then making their own, taking them home and trying them, and then they get to play with that formula and see how it works better for them.
I remember many years ago I was talking to an environmentalist saying to me, if you ever want to wash your vehicle, park it on your lawn. That way the water is going to go right into the grass and you can feed your grass at the same time,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Instead of out on your driveway or the sidewalk on the street, right? But what kind of natural soaps or detergents would you recommend? as opposed to the store-bought brands?
Yeah, so there's a product called Castile soap. It's a basic hemp soap. In some of our stores, what we have a really...
Can you use that for vehicles?
No, not for vehicles specifically,
just
just regular formulation for regular soap. Yeah, so Castile soap I would use for making like a liquid hand soap in a foamer pumper with some essential oils.
Is there anything?
I would use the same thing for the vehicle. Absolutely. You have to be aware of formulation because some of the products, all the products, will leave a film if you have too much of it. So it's a bit of experimentation in terms of how it works for you, right? Most of the people I speak with aren't so much concerned about their vehicle. It's more about how am I going to clean my kids and my clothes and my kitchen counter and my bathroom. So part of what we want to inspire in people is this really creative process. So here's some information. Build on it, play with it, formulate it the way you want to, the way it works for your life and your journey, because not everybody's going to start by making their own cleaners. Maybe they start in a different way on their sustainable journey. And so we want to always leave it open so that they can actually make those choices for themselves.
I've tried some of those handmade soaps, you know, with the oatmeal and the honey, and oh, it's just amazing. The smell and the texture and the feel, and it's so worth it. And it lasts a lot longer than the commercial soaps, right?
Yeah, it does.
With all the chemicals.
Yeah.
Now, what about zero waste? You guys actually have a zero waste social gathering. What's that all about?
Yes, we do. So it was sort of inspired by Southern Alberta Zero Waste, which is the group on Facebook, and we've kind of taken it under our wing. So what we've realized is nobody needs any more meetings in life. Nobody needs any more sort of like strict, rigid spaces. So we just want to create a social event. And what we're doing is leaving it up to the people who are attending those to really decide what we're doing. So for example, last month we gathered in a space, we had some tea, some snacks, and we made reusable tissues and reusable paper towels. We just cut up some extra fabric and we all came in and made ourselves a set, and then off we went. So we're going to do a bit of a skill share. Every month it'll be something different. It might be like a documentary, it might be just somebody sharing a skill with the group. Might make some reusable products, it just depends.
Mandy Sandbatch, president of the Lethbridge Sustainable Living Association. Thanks so much for joining me today in studio.
Thanks for having me.
It appears as though the Trudeau Liberals are in deep water over the protests going on across the country where supporters of the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs are setting up blockades. Joining me now to talk more about it is our parliamentary reporter, Ray Filion. Ray, there does not seem to be an end in sight when it comes to these rail and highway blockades.
It's incredible, Hal. We're now in the fourth week of those disruptions with no end in sight. I got to tell you, though, there's only one major barricade left at this moment, and it's near Montreal in Ganawagé. It's in Mohawk territory. But this thing, I think, has done a lot of damage to Justin Trudeau's credibility as a leader. He's been accused of being too weak, of having waited way too long before getting involved. As you know, a couple of weeks ago, he was traveling overseas campaigning for Canada's seat. You know, Canada wants to get a seat on the UN Security Council. So he spent a lot of time in Africa and Europe campaigning for that. Since he returned to Canada, he's been working nonstop to try and solve this crisis, but it's a heck of a mess, I got to tell you. Although there's a bit of perhaps a silver lining that appeared on Thursday as the Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs in British Columbia confirmed that they're going to be meeting with Carolyn Bennett and the British Columbia minister responsible for Indigenous issues. This is perhaps the key to solving this, because all the protests that we've seen in the past 3 or 4 weeks across Canada, the barricades, have been in support of those Wet'suwet'en hereditary chiefs in British Columbia who oppose a gas line that's currently being built in northern BC. So if the federal government can reach a deal with those hereditary chiefs in British Columbia, perhaps things will get back to normal. But I got to tell you, it's a heck of a mess. And what's amazing is that it's taken so long for the government to try and sit down with those chiefs in British Columbia, trying to solve this crisis. You'll recall last year, a year ago, everybody was talking about the SNC Lavalin controversy.
Right.
It took almost 2 months for the thing to come to an end. And now we're in the fourth week of this crisis. It's just incredible how long this government is taking to solve things. A lot of people are saying it's a sunny ways government. They're very good when the sun is shining, when it's all sunshine and lollipops, but very bad when there's a crisis.
And puppy dogs, too. Don't forget puppy dogs. But, Ray, what do we know about many of these protesters? Are they hired guns from the United States? Are they even Canadian?
I think that most of them are Canadians. You know, they're just they're Mohawks, other Native people standing in solidarity with those hereditary chiefs from British Columbia. And there's actually been a tour in the last week. The hereditary chiefs from British Columbia went to Ontario to thank the Mohawks there for their barricades. They also went to Ganawagi near Montreal to thank the leadership there for their support. So no, I think that they're Canadian, but it's just creating a heck of a mess for the Trudeau Liberal.
While many railways were blocked, CN and CP Rail have actually agreed to share some lines. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, that's right. Well, there was, as you know, a big barricade near Belleville, Ontario, on a Mohawk territory called Tyendinaga. I'm not sure I got the right pronunciation for that, but yeah, a major CN railway that's crucial for the network in Eastern Canada. You know, you're talking about a crucial line for everything east of Toronto. That's been blocked for several days. Traffic only resumed in the past few days, but it was creating major headaches for farmers, among others, because they were nearing a shortage of propane. So it was crucial to reestablish the service there. But in the meantime, while service was cut, what happened is that CP, Canadian Pacific, allowed CN to use their railway to try and, keep some sort of delivery system alive in the eastern part of the country. So it was actually nice to see some arch competitors work together for the greater good of the country here.
The Tories' message on the train blockades that they need to end yesterday is beginning to really resonate with Canadians.
Yeah, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer actually came out several weeks ago to call on the government to take a tougher stance towards those protesters, urging the government to call in the police or maybe the army. The Liberals disagree, but you can see the recent poll conducted by Nanos Research showing the Tories have gained 5 points over the past 4 weeks in public opinion. 36.2% of respondents to that poll say they would vote Conservative if an election were held today. 33% would vote for the Liberals, and 15.4% say they would go for the NDP. Support for the Liberals actually went down, not by that much, 0.8% in the past 4 weeks. That's not a lot, I find, while the NDP lost 1.3% according to Nanos.
Let's discuss the demise of the $20.6 billion project that never got off the ground, the Tech Frontier project in Northern Alberta. Ray, many people are blaming the Liberals for the loss of this project that was supposed to create around 7,000 new jobs.
Yeah, that's a big blow for the Albertan economy. As you know, Premier Kenney in Alberta was pushing hard. He wrote to Prime Minister Trudeau, urging him to give the green light. The big problem for Justin Trudeau, as you and I discussed a couple of weeks ago, was opposition within his own party. Many Liberal MPs from Ontario and Quebec were adamant. There was no way, they say, that the government could have given the green light to that project because of the pollution it would have generated. So they were urging on Prime Minister Trudeau not to give the green light. But there were pressures from the business community, urging Prime Minister Trudeau to approve the project. So it was a huge sigh of relief for a lot of people, I think, in the Prime Minister's office that Tech decided to withdraw its application, basically. So they didn't have, in the end, the Trudeau Liberals to make that very difficult decision. But a lot of people here on Parliament Hill, as you say, are pointing fingers at the Trudeau Liberals. They're blaming him, their delay, their environmental policies and whatnot. They say that Justin Trudeau is responsible for the demise of that project, although the company pointed out that the price of oil was a major reason they made the decision they made. But there's still a lot of people who are worried for what's next in Canada. What message is this thing and others sending investors who are thinking perhaps of investing in major projects in the oil sands of Alberta? When you look at what happened a few years ago to Energy East, a major pipeline project in Eastern Canada, there was so much public opposition to that project. The promoter decided to go home and not build the thing. When you look at all the hoops that Trans Mountain has had to go to jump through in the past few years to make that project a reality. Now Tech Frontier is getting the kibosh. It doesn't look like it's a good timing right now for major investors to invest in Canada, unfortunately, and
And you
create
know what's tough
jobs.
right now too? The price of oil is below $50 a barrel. I mean, it was around hovering at $47, $48 a barrel. We need a lot more than that here in Alberta. Ray, the coronavirus has now claimed more than 2,700 lives and infected more than 80,000 people around the world, mostly in China. Ray, is Canada preparing for a possible pandemic response?
Absolutely. We're being told by the health minister, by the chief public health officer of Canada, that all hands are on deck right now at Health Canada in many healthcare institutions and hospitals across the country. And we're starting to hear some pretty surprising messages coming from the government. One of them was the health minister, Patty Hajdu, this week, calling on Canadians to stockpile food and medicine in case of an outbreak here in Canada. Right now, things are pretty stable. We haven't seen that many cases, maybe half a dozen or a dozen somewhere, but nowhere near what we're seeing in other countries, including in Europe and the United States. Only a few cases. But Patty Hajdu, the federal health minister, was saying that Canadians should be prepared in case they're asked to, undergo quarantine at home and stuff like that. But yeah, we're told it's all hands on deck at the federal level in case, there's a major outbreak in this country, which we all hope won't happen.
Yeah, in the United States, the Center for Disease Control has already talked about it. Not if, but when the pandemic reaches the United States. And South Korea's dealing with it, Italy's dealing with it, Iran. So yeah, it is worldwide. A first deadline has arrived for the Tory leadership contenders outside of McKay, O'Toole, and Gladue. Who are some of the other big names we should watch out for?
Well, nobody, quite frankly. There are no big names. There's Marilyn Gladue. There are the two front runners, the perceived front runners, Erin O'Toole and Peter MacKay, as you mentioned. In total, there are 7 candidates. Most of them aren't well known. There are a couple of backbench MPs, a couple of former party operatives who are running, but I don't think that most of these people will make it all the way to June 7th, which is when the new leader is supposed to be elected. It's not shaping up to be a very exciting race. Peter MacKay has made some mistakes. Mr. O'Toole is kind of struggling right now to make his voice heard. Same thing for Marilyn Gladue. So I don't know what kind of race we're going to have. Although the Conservative Party did announce that we're going to be having 2 debates in April. There's going to be one in Toronto on April 17th. The second one in Montreal the following week, April 23rd. Also on Thursday this week, well-known Montreal businessman Vincent Guzzo announced he won't be running after all. You might know him from Dragon's Den on television. He appears regularly on that program. He said he won't be running because of what he calls unrealistic deadlines set up by the party. He says that those deadlines have already excluded some amazing candidates. We're thinking, of course, about Jean Charest here, the former premier of Quebec. So 7 candidates out of the block. And yeah, we're still waiting for that campaign to take off in earnest.
Some interesting information from Stats Canada. Ray discussed the reason why most Canadians decided not to vote in the last federal election. And the biggest reason was?
The biggest reason was I'm not interested in politics. You'll recall that 23% of eligible voters didn't cast a ballot in last October's election in Canada. Statistics Canada wanted to know why, and 35% of those Canadians said it was because they're not interested in politics. The other reasons given for not voting, 22% said it was simply because they were too busy, 13% blamed it on an illness or a disability, and 11% were out of town. They weren't in their riding.
The new NAFTA or the USMCA is getting a little closer to ratification in Ottawa. What's taking so long?
Well, I mean, the bill that was tabled a few weeks ago still needs to be debated in the House of Commons. Right now, it's being studied by a Commons committee. They're doing that expeditiously. It's not going to take much longer. And then the bill is going to have to be studied in the Senate. So the process we're seeing in the House of Commons is going to have to be the same process will have to be followed in the Senate. We're hoping that in the spring, everything will be said and done. The bill will be ratified here in Canada. As you know, Mexico and the United States have already done so. The big news this week actually came from the Bloc Québécois because all federal parties, the Liberals, the Conservatives, the NDP, the Greens, were on board with the government. The only party that opposed the bill was the Bloc Québécois because of some provisions dealing with aluminum. And as you know, most aluminum industry jobs are in Quebec. However, this week there was a deal reached by the government with the Bloc Québécois. So it turns out the Separatist Party from Quebec is now on board. So it will get this bill. It will get unanimous support from all parties in the House of Commons. So that's good news.
The federal Tories are asking a committee to study the Prime Minister's SNC-Lavalin ethical breach. Tell me more about that.
Well, yeah, that's the report that was tabled last August by the Ethics Commissioner, Mario Dion. He blamed Justin Trudeau, saying he put pressure on his former Attorney General, Jody Wilson-Raybould, to step in and try to keep SNC-Lavalin from a damning criminal trial. Turns out the Conservatives want to revive that controversy. They want to invite Mr. Dion to testify for 2 hours before the Commons Ethics Committee. However, the Bloc Québécois and the NDP oppose that, but the Conservatives are trying to revive the issue again. They want Mr. Dion to testify. This is just an attempt on the part of the Conservatives to try and embarrass Justin Trudeau. So we'll see what the other two opposition parties say. Obviously, the Liberals are opposed to that. They don't want to hear from that again.
Of course not.
About it again, for obvious reasons. But that's the way it goes in minority parliaments. When the Liberals had a majority, they could decide, they could call the shots and dictate the agenda. Not anymore. We'll see what happens.
Canada Day this year will look much different in Ottawa. Why do you think that is?
Well, that's because Parliament is undergoing major renovations. It's going to take something like 10 years to finish the job, at least a decade, if not more. Parliament Hill right now looks like a big construction area. There's no place for a stage. So this year, exceptionally, they're going to be moving the stage to a park a couple of blocks away, Majors Hill Park, which is behind the Chateau Laurier, for those of you who are familiar with the nation's capital. So that's where the big party is going to be happening. It's going to be much different, as you say, from years past when the big stage is normally right in front of the Peace Tower.
Our parliamentary reporter, Ray Fillion, joining me once again from Ottawa. Thanks so much, Ray.
Always a pleasure, Hal.
On behalf of all of us here at BCN, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks so much for watching.